Hello, in this video I would like to show you my process of creating parts for figures. I mainly create them for transformers, so here are some examples. This process can also apply to different figures, but I will be basing everything on transformers. So in front of them are the sets that I created for the figures. They may vary in color, but because they are also for different versions, but basically you see what has been created for those figures. This part here, as you can see, is also on this figure, but it's printed in different materials, so it can be put up in a different way, and I will show you how I do that. So to quickly say what has been done in this figure: the gun and the launcher, also the adapter that allows it to plug in. In this figure, the gun, launcher and the adapter. In this one, the head and two big guns, as you can see in front of him. In this one, there's a gun and he uses two guns. And on this figure I made a different neck because I didn't like how the basic figure makes use of its neck. A gun and two stabilizers for the chest. I have a separate video on some of them, so I will probably add the link in the description. So I will show you my process from beginning to finish. I usually measure most of the things by eye or by comparing things that I already printed. I have some printed out measuring tools that I use, but I will show you the whole process on a different figure. And I use a program called Maya, and this program is not mainly for creating 3D printable objects. It's more of a special effects program, but I'm using it at work, so that's why I am making my projects there. And just know that this won't be a movie about how to model, because really you can use multiple tools to achieve the goal. This will be more about the process of how to react to your prototypes, how to fix them, or which direction to take based on the results you are getting from your first prints. So I will show a brief introduction into Maya, the 3D program, and then I will fast forward the modeling and the measuring and the comparing with the commentary. So thank you, and let's begin. So this figure in the middle will be the figure I chose to show you how to make accessories. It's an older figure, but the accessories will be useful for me because I always wanted to make those, and the rules will apply to every figure that you want to make a mod for. And what I would like to do is this is a generation 1 version, so I would like to make weapons similar to those. So a gun like this, a rocket launcher like this, and this figure is also inspired by this one. So, and to show you how they approach the subject. So as you can see, those parts this is clearly based on this one, but they are different. So when I'm making my parts, I also want to make them different. I never aim to make an exact copy, because think of it as a signature, but basically this is what I would like to achieve. So let's move on to the process. I removed the accessories from the G1 version, so we will be helping ourselves with these to make the base. And as you can see, he now does not he has this thing as a weapon, but I would like to make something that's more similar to the G1 version, so I will be moving this to the side. And the gun is actually easy to make, I mean to fit, because this is just a handle and you just have to make sure that the length is enough so it doesn't hit this part. But the launcher will be more of a challenge, so I like to use existing parts. So there is a mod already made that attaches to this part here, but for me it is important that the launcher will be coming out of his back. So as you can see, you have to analyze the part and see where would you like the new part to be attached. So for me, can I remove this hand to show you better? Okay, so without this hand, there is a screw hole here that is actually quite deep, and I think this will be a great base for a launcher. So you can make a thing that plugs in here, wraps around, and this is the part that the launcher will be placed on. So a plug comes here, there is extension, and this will be the main attachment part for the gun. And to see how to measure this, because you can measure it with a tool, but for me the thing that's most reliable is just using existing pre-printed parts to measure the hole. I printed some measuring tools, some cylinders to make the measurement easy, but you can also use your other projects. Like for example, this is one of the guns that I will be offering, and you can see this is the other one. You can see how much this hole here allows for the movement. So perhaps, so as you can see, this thing here is just slightly bigger than this hole, so I will be using this as a base to make the plug fit. I think that actually this pin has some kind of a regular size, but I do not remember the size right now, and let's assume that we don't know anything about the size of this hole. So this thing here, so yeah, let's try this thing. Oh, see, so this thing fits and it's holding. So because I have this project in 3D, I will be using this tip to make this plug. So we already have our measurement here, and for aesthetics we need to see what will look best. You will probably make one or two different sizes to see which one works, because this hand handle is different than the usual 5mm. Those guns will not fit, but you can position them like this and see if the size, I think this size actually works pretty well if his gun were this length. So I will be using this gun length to make the handgun. So one thing I forgot to measure is this length from here to here. So we can also use those parts here. Let's see. So this length here of this part is basically the length that we will need. This line here from this part to end. So I have this measurement, and this will be another base for my project. So we have some basic ideas of how we want to do this, and we also need to know how big this thing would need to be. So again, I will just put those parts here and see what works. So if this is too big or not, I think that this part may be okay. Maybe it's a bit too long, something like this. So probably the launcher, I will try to make the launcher no bigger than this part. So this will be another base. I have of course some other tools that I made during my journey with 3D printing, so measuring tools that are more helpful than this, but I would like to show you the beginning of the process for me for making them. I'm not exactly an expert, so these are the ideas that I came to by myself. So if there is a better option, please share it with me, because of course I may be wrong, but I'm sharing with you my experience. So now we have this basis, and we have to move to some 3D program, and my program of choice is Maya, but it's not very important what program you use, but there are some rules that you have to stick with to make this work. So if you're using SketchUp, 3ds Max, Cinema 4D, and obviously the SolidWorks is a program that's great for those kinds of parts, but it doesn't give me personally the control, the artistic, let's say, control that I want to have by making them. So let's move on to the 3D program, and I will show you based on Maya how to model and prepare it for 3D printing. Okay, so this will be a very fast introduction to the program and how 3D works. So this is a gun that you saw in the presentation. So this is in 3D, and in 3D the gun is built out of points that are called vertices. So basically there's a cloud of points, and between them the surface is being created. So I can move this point here, and as you can see the surface extends, so I can also extend this part, and basically this is what we will be doing. We will be creating parts like this, extending, adding. So this is the part that we will focus on, because this is the front of the gun that went into the figure and made a good connection. So I have here a cylinder that I can create, and basically most of the objects will begin with a simple object like this. I won't go through the shortcuts that I am using, because like I said, there are multiple programs that have different shortcuts, but it will be basically about how it works. So I can select this part here, and as you can see I can extend it, make it a bit smaller, extend it. So basically we are working with the parts like this. And the most important thing in 3D is that you cannot create objects that have how to explain this, that are not quads, that don't have 3 edges. So if I add a point here, so as you can see there's a point here, so if I extend this, there's an impossible shape here. The program does not know how to show it. There's an invisible edge, and if you would try to print this, it will not come out well. So you have to remove all those parts like this. So there's a cleanup option, and as you can see it created a line here, so you have to be careful with this. And a second part is that the objects cannot be intersecting. So this thing right now, because in 3D there are no basic collisions, so this looks like a nice shape, but if I go to a transparent mode, as you can see this part is inside this, and the 3D printer will not know what this is, and will try to make 2 objects inside one, and it will mess up the print. So what you have to do is to create those objects as a one solid piece, so that they are not intersecting. So there's an operation called boolean, so booleans union. As you can see, it created an edge here, and now this thing can be printed. So I will now move into showing you fast forward how to create those objects with the commentary, but this is a basic introduction of how to work in a 3D space and how to create your objects. Okay, so we will focus on the tip. Like I told you, we will be using this as a basis, so I will make a cylinder, and this will be our handle and the plug for the launcher. So I also know that this length is the length of the part of the figure that I will be using. Of course, this is a straight line, so other measurements can be used, but just to show you that it also can be useful to have some kind of shapes. And I'm making just some cubes, so that they will make the extension, duplicating the part and making the boolean operations. After this I can export the object and save it to an OBJ file and prepare it for print. So this program supports and prepares the instructions for the printer. So let's see how it comes out. Okay, so this is my printer setup. If you want to know more about this, there's a movie on my channel that I will link down below to show you what is this. And this is the filament I will be using. It's a Devil Design green color. So you just have to put the card in. This is some leftover filament. And I will be turning on the printer and turning on the filter. So now we just have to let it turn on, choose our model, and it's shoulder handle 1, and it recognizes ABS, and time is 12 minutes. So now the printer will heat up, and I will show you a part of the printing process once it is up, but this heating up may take a few minutes, so let's stop for now and come back when it's done. Okay, so the print is starting, and as you can see, the table is moving up. We can move this, just remove the part of the filament. So it's sampling the bed. It will basically move around and sample in, I think, 2 parts to be sure that the bed is leveled, and to know where exactly the position of the head relative to the bed, because once it starts printing, it doesn't know where it is. So it's basically a memory. So here it is. This is how this starts. This is starting to print the base. As you can see, it's moving, and this will be creating a raft. I mean, so it's like a base for the print. So I will come back once this small print is done. As you can see, the print is done. So this is how it looks like. We'll use this to scrape it off. Okay, so this is the part of the table, and we will see how it fits the figure and how we will continue from this point. Okay, so let's see how our first model came out. So this should be quite easy to remove. Okay, you should be able to use your fingers for some of those prints, so like I am doing now. So here it is. Let's see how it fits in the hand. So it's actually quite a nice fit. So we already have a proper handle for the gun, and let's see how we will manage with this part. And I see I made a mistake. Let's move this hand out. In rushing this, I made a mistake because it should wrap around more. So I just forgot to make this wrapping around more, but it's still okay, because yes, as you can see, the plug is working, so the dimensions are okay. It's just that this is slightly too long, so it will have to be not so long, and it will have to, of course, bend and go in like this. And we can also see that we'll have another problem here, because this is at an angle. So one part of this should be also at an angle to sit flat. And let's see if so actually the dimensions should be okay. It's just that this part should be flat. So I think it's a good place to continue from. So just using one part and 12-minute print, we have a handle for our gun, and we have the basic measurements to make the fit for this part. So let's go back to the 3D program. Okay, so we know what to change. So we have to make this plug shorter. Also, we have to wrap around this object. I am reusing some of the parts that we already made, so just duplicating the cubes and moving the points around so it fits what I need. So this is the angle that we had to create so that it sits better. Just adding some more points, slight adjustments. So I think this should be enough. So again, we perform the Boolean operations, save it as an OBJ file, and create the printing instructions for the printer. Okay, so the second part is done. I already removed it from the raft. as you can see, here's the shape, and you can see if it fits, and it fits very securely, so we can lift the figure. And as you can see, there is a gap between this, so we made this part stick too far up, but it's still a good way to tell if you're going in the right direction. We'll have to make this thing lower, and I think this thing is sticking out too far. Sorry for the cat. So let's go back to 3D and continue working on those parts. Okay, so a few more adjustments, making this a little lower. I will modify the part that will plug in because the square shape is boring. So again, Boolean operations and save the file, but let's work on the gun some more. So I'm starting with a cylinder, and this will be the barrel of the gun. So just adding some detail, moving the parts around just to create the basic shape, because I will refine it later, so it doesn't have to be exactly the same. So adding the indentation, moving around some parts, making the barrel wider. And now let's create the fin, and to use that we will create a cube. So just adding some edges and moving the parts around. So now I think after this we'll have to create the body, and we'll also use a cube for that. So I have the gun in front of me, so I know exactly what to do. For you it may be harder, but you can look for some images on the internet to see how the G1 Mirage gun looks. This is a close-up, so you can pause and see. So adding some more edges, moving parts around, basically very basic operations that most programs can use, and I think there are many tutorials on how to model some so simple shapes, so I will not be saying exactly what's happening right now. So I will reuse the fin to create a clip, the gun clip, let's call it a gun clip. And now there is a round part at the top. I'm switching to a side view to make some more adjustments, and there is a round part at the top, and I will be using the part of the barrel. I could create a cylinder for that, but it's just close and it's easy. So making some making some more parts, adding some edges. That part has some rings going around it, so here they are. Let's duplicate some of them, and there's a small fill-like shape out there, so I'll make one, and just moving around some parts some more because this part was wider, and making some modifications to the gun clip just at the generation 1 gun. So I'm also reusing some parts, some walls of the object to make the shape fit. I will duplicate the bottom and reuse that to make those two shapes just like this. And now I'm analyzing the shape and I see that something is off, so I will scale this and move it slightly to the left because I made the up and down even and it looks like it's not on the generation 1 gun. So let's create the back of the gun, just some slight adjustments, and it's looking okay. And now let's create the part that's on top of the back of the gun, so I will also reuse the fin. So reusing parts is often in my process, and just moving them around, adding a bar because there's a bar on the generation 1 gun. And let's use the barrel. I'm adding some rings around to make it smoother, and I will duplicate it and use this to create the back end of the gun because it's very similar to the barrel. So I will just rotating the barrel and making this tip, and also adding some rings, some edges to make it smoother. This operation is also quite common in modeling, and it's in most of the tutorials, so if you want, you can find the information easy on the internet. And right now I'm adding some detail, so I'm smoothing those parts, I can make a tutorial how to do that exactly, but you can use other programs to do that. So just moving them around. I'm duplicating the gun and moving it up so I have a backup in case I made some kind of mistake. And the same part from the launcher is used for the handle. So now I'm smoothing everything, moving them parts around, combining them using the Boolean operations. So yeah, so the gun is almost ready. Let's save it to an OBJ file, reuse that launcher part that we made, and prepare everything for print. I have my pliers here to help. You will see how it works on the object. I think I have to recalibrate my machine. But the gun should be easy to remove. So the part of the designing this is also thinking on how you will remove the supports that I am doing now. So this is the gun, just a bit left here. So this is our first prototype of the gun, and the handle is based on our previous parts, so it should theoretically fit in his hand with no problem. So let's see. And it's okay. It's not. I think it should be longer because this thing is sticking out, but I think that our gun is very close to what we want to have. So this went fast actually. There are some details that you can add. I think I will making this shorter just because it will be easier for him to bend the arm more, and of course the handle should be longer, but can I just, no, it has to be longer, so that will have to be fixed. And you can add some details, but as for now I think this is okay. So this is our old part, and this is the new shoulder part that we made. There is some leftover of the base, so the way you can remove that is, I will show you in a second. So it should be easy to cut like this, just because the lines are going parallel. So as you can see, I could do this more precisely, but not while showing you this on the camera. Let's see how our new part fits. So we'll remove the arm. The gun fell off, but that's not important. So as you can see, it plugs in just right, and the angle could be a bit bigger, so it's sitting right now. It can rotate, so but let's leave it like this for now. So this is our third print. We already have a okay shoulder connector. The gun is mostly done. So next step is going back to Maya and fixing those issues, so making this a bit shorter, the handle a bit longer, maybe adding some details, but I think they are not necessary at this point, or I don't think I will be adding them actually, because I think I like the way this looks. This will be of course done in a different color, but I'm making this green so you can see better see what's going on. So okay, so let's continue modeling. So let's change the back end of the gun, so I will make it slightly shorter. So I think just eyeball it the way I think it looks best, making the handle longer, and once that's done, save the gun for another version, and let's work on the mount for the launcher. So just extending edges a bit. I decided to make the tip a different size, a different angle, I'm sorry, so that it looks better, because it's positioned on the shoulder at that angle. So I will also make the tip at an angle, and the connecting part also is changed, so it's not a square shape, just a shape like this. So Boolean operations again, save it, and perhaps let's work on the launcher and the missile. So another cylinder starts the missile. I am just performing basic operations, extending edges, moving them around. This is of course fast forward. like 5 times, so so it's not that fast, but it gives you a basic idea of just creating the shapes. I am refining them later, so I just want to make a basic, very basic shape and then add some details like the indentation here and some other parts like this at front. So I like to start with the very simple version at first and then modify if needed, and this gives me a fast result that I can work with. And I am switching to this side view to make sure that the back end of the missile is the correct shape. And let's create the extension that will go into the launcher. So using this, I will also create the launcher. I'm duplicating the missile and creating another cylinder, and I'm only modeling the cylinder on the missile because I know that these two parts will have to connect. So that's why I want to see them as a one part. So I'm modeling the launcher so that it looks good with the missile. So let's see our size. So this is the size that we picked when comparing the parts. And I think the missile is okay, so I will make a hole for the missile. And just some slight modifications because I'm not sure of the look, so I'm trying to make it bigger, thinner, this part, like moving him around like this. So I'm looking for the shape. So I am now duplicating the part of the mount, and I will be using that to make a hole that the mount will fit on. So this will slide over the mount. So right now let's export everything to an OBJ file and print everything out. No, there is an error, so let's ignore that. So I'm trying to manage the files. So the gun, the mount, the missile, and the launcher will be printed as one print. Okay, so another print has finished. So I'll move this gun and this adapter away. This is from the previous version. So let's begin removing it from the raft, and you have to be careful not to break anything. Usually it's easy. As you can see, most of the parts are just coming off naturally, and I am at the strange angle, so I am kind of, I'm not seeing what I'm doing exactly, so I don't want to grab the wrong thing and rip it out. So here's the handle, here's the top part. Okay, of course I can remove the parts more accurately with a blade later. So okay, so it's more or less done. You can just do cut here so that this small part is gone, and this thing here, you can also remove this with a blade or some sandpaper later on. So okay, so this is the new version of the gun. So as you can see, the handle is longer and this part is shorter. So let's see how this one fits. And this one fits very nicely. Can he bend? So he cannot bend it exactly the way I would like, but for it to look like it looks, it has to have something sticking out. So I think I will leave this, modify the camera. So I think I will leave this as it is, maybe come back to it later. So let's move to the shoulder launcher, and to do that we have to remove this part. It's very stubborn. You can see the, so after this movie I will recalibrate the printer, because this is mostly because of the calibration is slightly off. And let's make a cut. So like I told you, this could be removed with some sharp knife, so like this. So okay, it's a rough version, but the newer ones will look better, and let's see how it fits right now. So yeah, right now, as you can see, just by eyeballing everything, it is a very nice fit and secure fit. So it took us only like 4 versions to come to this, and the gun is like the second version, and now we have to see how the launcher and the rocket looks like. So I made a mistake here because I made the hole exactly the size of this part here, and this part should be smaller than this, so I will have to make that adjustment. But before I do, just for this purpose, I can cut this part here, and probably just by turning this I will eat some plastic and make it so that it will fit the launcher, just to see how it looks, because I'm not sure if the size will be okay aesthetic wise. So this should now more or less fit now. So let's make some cuts here. So sometimes I am making this kind of modifications just to see if this will be looking okay, because this part can be easily fixed in the print, but I still want to see what I will get. Okay, so I made some cuts, and okay, so it more or less it sits in this part, and let's see how this two fit. So let's, okay, so I think I will have to remove this one and do this here. So this tolerance also might be a bit could be a bit too tight. I think I made it big enough, but okay, so it does come in, but it's very tight, so I'll have to make this adjustment. And here is the missile again. So those hairs are sometimes they come from the print, so let's see how this thing looks right now. That was my phone. Okay, so we have something like this, and it's not exactly what I was expecting, but let's see how he looks with this in here, his arm attached. Okay, so but it's a start for the launcher, because I think the gun is okay. Let's put this. Okay, so I will do something like this, and I will make this thing a bit. So I see that there might be some warping here, so that's why it's too tight. But I will just cut out some plastic so it's a better fit, and I will make those changes also in the Freedom model. Okay, so right now I made it too loose. Okay, so let's go back here and see how we can make this work. So I think that the launcher itself, the size is not that bad, but I think the missile should be bigger, because I think the launcher should go in more, because it cannot be much longer because of those wheels. But I think I will compensate with a bigger missile. Maybe make this part wider, I'm not sure. So I think the gun is looking okay. This part is quite secure. On the next version I will make this missile bigger and make this opening go in more into the base of the launcher. I think I will be adding some detail also to this part, but let's now focus on making the missile bigger and position it on the shoulder, because it is important how it will look. So next version will have those changes. So I am changing the launcher. I am working on the missile first, so making the plug-in part making the bar thinner, and also changing the shape. So I make the missile bigger. I am modifying the thing that goes into the launcher. That's the extension of the mount. I'm adding a fin because I just felt like it would look good. So just slight modifications, making the hole a different size. I am duplicating everything and moving it up, so I have previous versions. So while comparing them, I see that the missile is too big, so I made it slightly smaller, and export everything to an OBJ file, put it on the program, and print again. Okay, so another version is done. This time it's the bigger rocket and the modified launcher. So I made some fast calibration, and I think it's giving us a better result. So the raft is coming off easier. Yes, I think it's better. So let's remove these parts. So it should all fit now. Okay. So let's see if this thing fits. Oh no, it's still not going in. Why? I think I know why. 1 second. So I think there's something wrong with the model. I will have to check it, but for now I will use this to make the top of the hole bigger, because I think the problem is just with this part, because when the print is ending, it's just plugging the hole. I think the walls are just too thin in the model. So as you can see, after this, the rocket is almost broken. But okay, so we have this for scale. We will see how this fits in this version. So as you can see, the launcher this time it's too loose, unfortunately. So, but is the scale okay? That's the question. So I think the scale is much better, and I think the rocket would be better looking if it was shorter. Also, the launcher doesn't have to be so long. So I think I will start with making the rocket shorter. So let's move back to Maya. Okay, so final modifications. The rocket is shorter, and also I'm again modifying the hole that goes into the launcher. Just move slightly, changing the shape, making this a little bit thinner. So just slight modifications, and again export and print. Okay, so we are back in Maya, and I made some final adjustments. They are already done in this because I had problems with my recording, but I'm going to go through very fast what I did. So in this gun, the handle is a bit shorter, so I just moved this thing up a bit, and on the launcher I just made it smoother. So I added some detail here and smoothed the whole part. So this is the previous version. As you can see, it has some hard edges, and the smooth version is this. So I made an opening with this part, which is exactly the extension of the adapter. So it should all fit. So I'm going to print everything in color now, and we will see how it will come out. So let's move on to the final print. Okay, so I have the prints ready after the final modifications. They are printed in color. So let's attach them to the figure and see how they are presenting. So we'll remove those two parts. So last modifications I did to the gun was making this slightly shorter. So right now it's exactly the right fit, it's not sticking out. And for the launcher I smoothed the shape. I didn't add any detail because I didn't think it was necessary, but the missile is removable. It's a bit stiff on this one. I don't want to break it, but you can twist it off. In some cases you may use something to make this hole slightly bigger, but it's all depending on your printer. On mine it's a very tight fit, and you can just plug it here. And this is a tight connection, but it is movable, so you can position it up. If you put a lot of force, it will of course disconnect, but I don't see the point of using some kind of a hinge here, because this is holding very well like this, and it's not really necessary for a hinge. And it also gives you more options because it can slide. It doesn't just rotate, it can slide on this peg for more options. So here is Mirage. I'm very happy with how it came out. Also, while removing one of the guns, because as I printed a few of them, so I left one here so you can see how it looks. I broke this tip here, and it doesn't look that bad. And because this part is shorter, it allows you to bend the arm at a different angle than this one. So it's an option. You can also do this on your version, because the files of course will be available. So it's an option for you. And also the mount here can be just inverted, flipped in the 3D program, and I also made a flipped version, so you can arm Mirage with 2 launchers. So these are the options for you. I personally like how it came out, and I'm glad that that this project can be shared. So I'm wondering how will you use this knowledge, and please share your projects if you find this useful. I would also like to know what am I doing wrong, because obviously there are many ways to approach this and many ways to this kind of work. So I am very curious of your opinion of my process, and how can I improve it, and what can I change. Also, one thing, this is a few of the launchers like this. Depending on where the seam is after printing, so let me just remove this part. Okay, it came off with some of the raft, but it doesn't matter. This is a very tight fit, so I made a version that is more loose, and you may have to like here it's a very you can plug it in, but it is very tight. So what you can do is just you can make a small cut here, just to make it, because of this the seam in my case is on the inside of the opening, and it widens this opening. So even though in the 3D program everything is okay, the print came out with this slightly thinner, but if after making this cut I can plug this with no problem. So you may do this slight adjustment on your version, but like I said, it depends on your printer. So thank you for staying with me up till this part, and let's just put some other figures next to him. So we have some more troops. So thank you, and see you at my other projects.